I'm just saying, Empire is still the best. It's the most complex, the most sophisticated. Wasn't afraid to have a dark ending.
Yeah, but come on, if it wasn't for the first one, you wouldn't have any of the rest of the movies.
One of the things this movie does is it introduces a new generation of X-Men into the franchise. We see the coming-of-age stories of young Nightcrawler, Storm, Scott, and Jean.
For me, it's particularly exciting because I directed X-Men 1 and 2, so here I get to now introduce famous characters, but as children, that are nothing like their characters would ultimately become as adults. And that, for me, was one of the most exciting parts about the younger cast.
It makes me bitter, firstly, and angry, and feeling of being displaced, being resigned.
It's nice to have fresh blood, just from a professional point of view, just to have some fresh faces, because frankly, Michael and I are really sick of each other. Nick and I don't talk anymore.
I think that was probably my favourite treat.
Does that mean I'm expelled?
Oh, on the contrary. You're enrolled.
A lot of the time when I'm writing, I'm imagining actors playing the parts. And in the case of Scott, I was imagining James Dean, like young James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause, playing the part. And so what we were looking for was someone like that, someone who had this sort of very quiet rage in him.
I had seen a few films that Tye Sheridan had done. I met with him. I found him for his age to be fiercely intelligent, asking all the right questions about character, motivation. And so I felt that he would portray a very rambunctious, a very angry, young Cyclops.
Walking in onto the set and looking down at the X on the floor is when it really hit me.
Tye kind of brings that vulnerable, scared, but also not wanting to show that Scott is kind of a terrified young boy, and he's a new kid in school, and he just wants for everyone to respect him and look up to him, but he can't be that person.
I remember, like, the first time I met the kid, he reminded me of my own little brother with the same age. So, immediately hit it off.
I think one of the biggest challenges to the role is that it's a lot of face acting, because you can't see your eyes, and I would say that a good portion of my acting is here.
When you give a character dark glasses to wear for the entire film, it's very, very, very challenging, especially a young actor. So one of the things that Tye has also is he has a very expressive face, and he has a very expressive mouth, and so those things help when you're taking away one of an actor's biggest weapons.
You're still scared of me. Hey, I have special glasses now.
They're not scared of you, they're scared of me. You're not the only one who can't fully control your powers.
Jean was another fun character to write and cast because we wanted to do something that was very different than Famke. She's sort of like an outcast within the outcasts, so there's nowhere for her.
I'm a terribly huge fan of Game of Thrones. I've always loved Sophie Turner. I became friendly with her through a mutual friend, and I thought she would just make a perfect young Jean. Her talent, her physical appearance, it was just the right casting.
She came in and she auditioned, and she just blew us away. I mean, it was unquestionable. There was actually a monologue about the first time she felt her powers and how scary that was and how it actually was the moment when her mother died.
I was 10 when the voices started coming. At first, I thought it was all a bad dream because it was happening during the nighttime, but then it started coming during the day, at school, in class. I thought I was going crazy. And then I tried to control it, but that only made it worse. And then one day, I was coming home from school with my mom, and I got in her head. I didn't mean to, but I did. And then she lost control of the car, crashed into a tree. I could feel everything she felt in that moment of her death. I could hear her last thought, and then I woke up.
And I just remember I was looking around. There were a lot of grown-ups that were pretty choked up watching her do it.
I'd watched all the movies, and when I was really young, my brothers always used to read the comics, so I always used to like steal a couple of their comics and read it. And Jean was always my favorite.
You will learn to control your powers, and when you do, you'll have nothing to fear. Most of my stuff has been with Sophie, and she's doing an amazing job. And Charles, in the history of X-Men, he's got a really quite profound connection to her. He understands how hard it is to have the power that they share. He was very close to her and very protective of her, and kind of parental and fatherly towards her.
Thank you, Chief. Hold on! What did I miss?
For Nightcrawler, I was looking for somebody who had a lot of pathos and sympathy, who just wants to show people a good time and use his bizarre looks and talent to entertain people. Kodi Smit-McPhee is just got such a warm heart, and he's so intelligent, and he has an amazing philosophy about life and a depth. And as I established in X-Men 2, Nightcrawler is a very religious character. So I thought that these qualities could carry into young Nightcrawler.
I did watch X2 and juiced the whole Marvel universe of all of Nightcrawler's information, and from that I kind of just built what I think fans loved in him so much, and that was his traditional kind of happy, swashbuckling, joyful, but very faithful, vulnerable Nightcrawler.
Kodi stepping into Alan Cummings' shoes has got to be a big task, and he's just great. He's also killing it with the accent.
I'd like to go to the mall.
The costume I love the most is his traditional circus outfit, because it has so much aging to it and character and so much history, and it really resonates with, I think, Nightcrawler.
I found an old jacket in the throwaway, crazy back room of Western costume on the floor. A stained old circus jacket with these incredibly fantastic pointed tails, held together by a string, this thing. We tried it on Kodi when he came for his first fitting, and he had the perfect frame to wear something like this. So we recreated that.
You're
not blue? Looks like you and I have that in common now.
I'm blue. I'm cut.
Nightcrawler was very interesting because we had to base it somewhat on what was done for Alan Cummings. So we had to adapt what was done on Alan and make it fit on Kodi.
How you doing? It's actually quite simple when you watch it. It's a few steps that's like transfers of the kind of scars, and then airbrush, and then most of the time it takes is the beautiful shading that they do to kind of make it all pop. And then there's teeth and contacts as well.
One of the main improvements that we've done on the makeup was this tail. We came up with this kind of kinetic moving tail. It's a tail with an inner armature that has all sorts of tension on it, so that whenever the actor moves, the tail moves on its own, basically.
I think fans will be happy with that depiction of him. But yeah, it's amazing to see how all these different lanes come to collaborate and create such a great one piece in the end.
I'm very excited to see your culture.
The only thing American about this place is that it used to be British.
This is Scott. He's new here, too.
Part of the fun of the X-Men universe is it's so richly populated. And Jubilee was another student at the school, one that we get to spend some time with, although we hope to spend more time with her in chapters that lie ahead of us.
In this particular film, she doesn't have a large role, but I don't know where the character's going to go. So in casting Lana Condor's young Jubilee, I wanted to introduce her and bring her into the film.
This is X-Men. I'm still in shock. Every day I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't even believe it.
For Jubilee's costume, we just couldn't stop. I think she ended up with 3 costumes in the movie. We must have had 25 costumes for her. I mean, and I could have thrown a dart in the dark and picked one I liked. You know, they were just all good.
Everything that I wear is very, very much from the comic book. I might as well have been taken from the comic book and just thrown into the film.
Ah! Jesus! It's fun for the fans to be introduced to all these new characters. What's great to see with all of these actors is you can see that it means a lot to them coming onto this, and they really work hard.
Luckily, we have what I think is the best cast you could hope to assemble for something like this. So we've been gifted with incredible tools and an incredible leader in Bryan Singer to kind of help make sure that these stories continue to thrive.
Auf Wiedersehen.